everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Nora and I'm part of the Businessmap team. This is one of our series experts talk, and today we're going to cover a very interesting and I think purposeful topic, which is agility and sustainability. We are very excited to welcome our guest today, Joanne Stone. She's amazing. She does so much, and she has been a voice in the agile community since 2012. And today our goal is to share knowledge with our agile communities and actually bring light on how teams can build a sustainable future without losing the force of innovation, if I could say so. So Joanne, thank you very much for joining us today. If you would like, you can introduce yourself with a few words and just get us back to the beginning, how it all started and what is your mission.
Thank you so much, Nora, and
you're welcome.
And Businessmap for reaching out. Like, I was just like, wow, this is awesome. So I really appreciate it. Yeah, a little bit more about me, I guess, and some sort of fun tips and everything else that you want to know. I live in Toronto, just outside of Toronto, in a little town called Brooklyn, in Canada. And I am the proud mother of 4 girls and 2 dogs, and one of my daughter has 3 cats. So it's a very full house. Wow. And so one dog is right now sleeping underneath here, and the other dog will probably come in a little while. So sorry for any interruptions.
No worries at all. No worries at all.
Yeah, so I've been in the Agile community since 2012, but my background has mainly been in IT, and started off as a software developer. I'm very, very passionate about people and the planet, and really my aspect of getting started in this specific space is because of it all actually started because of the fires that were happening in Australia, and the impact that was happening in the world at that particular point in time, and then shifting to the time of COVID, where you could really, really feel it like close, as to the impact of what was happening in the world. And at that point in time, what I started to see and started to feel is just that there was this there's a lot more despair that was happening, and confusion. What should we do? Jobs are being cut. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that I hopefully I don't want to traumatize people who've kind of like went through it, but it was pretty scary. Like, it really, that's what I would sit there and say. It was very scary for a lot of people, a lot of unknowns. So really, I was working with Lisa Atkins, and her and I were chatting, and have been chatting earlier on that year, but before the pandemic. We actually were on a trip to Utah that I invited myself to. Hey, you're doing what? Oh, can I come? And she's so gracious and so beautiful. So anyways, it really inspired a lot of me to kind of go, well, what is the Agilist right now doing in this world? Like, what are we doing in this space of emergency awareness, just helping out when there's climate emergencies, right? Like, what can we do? Like, how can someone who works with Scrum and Kanban and business agility and corporations, like, and we love people, like, there's people's at the core of what we do, and we like to do action, right? Like, we like to deliver value, right? So like, for me, it's like, well, what could we potentially do in this particular space? So I started interviewing people. So, back in 2020, I started to do all of these interviews of people all over the world. The very first call I made was to a 911 operator in New York State to kind of go, what happens when you guys have disasters? And how do you handle it? And I go, and so it was a very interesting interview. I kind of like sat back, and after I listened to it, I could see how our teaming would work just beautifully, but knowing also that they naturally do a lot of the transparency, meetups, stand-ups, like they do that automatically, right? But definitely there was places where we could kind of like support a team that was actually doing this in this disaster recovery room. So it just, like, every single interview I kind of went through, I was like, oh, there's another opportunity. Oh, look, we could do that. Oh, we could do that. And just so inspired by these beautiful groundbreaking people, like just going out there and actually making these changes and trying these things new. So I'm not the only one that's been doing this. I mean, this has been going on for quite a few years. So Yuta Exheim, for example, she's been doing a huge amount of work in this and has been doing it for a while. And I got introduced to her later on, but just to let you know, like, I think that there's a lot of us which are waking up to this and kind of going, how do we actually do something? How can we take this to like where we're at right now? How what can we do with this so that we can make an impact on people or planet? And so one of the things that I find, like, even just, by the way, when we say sustainability, I just want to make sure that, you know, people kind of understand what that means. So sustainability from the UN perspective, it has like the economic, environmental, and social aspect of it. And they have all the SDGs, right, which are there. And so when I think of sustainability, I'm not thinking of just climate, like of net zero or anything in from a, it's not just a climate related activity that we can do. It's in social, and it's in environmental, right? So what can we do in those particular spaces? Like for some of the stuff that I do, like I'm working with a local farmer, a person that's helping local farmers in Ontario. I've worked with a food garden, right? Not too far away from me. I'm working with the Latam community, help people get jobs, right? Newly immigrated Latin Americans get jobs in Canada. So there's the social aspect of it, and then there's the environmental aspect of it. And so when you look at the SDGs, you know, we're helping with food insecurity. This is awesome. You know, we're helping with, you know, partnership, right? Collaboration. So like there's all these things that we can, you know, work inside of all those SDGs if we really wanted to. But I think a lot of it starts with our specific passion and, you know, the area that we as an Agilist want to work on. So if you're a developer, you know, this is what you can do. If you're a Scrum Master, this is what you can do. If you're a team lead, this is what you can do. If you're a CEO, this is what you can do, right? So there's a variety of different levels that we as Agilists and enterprise coaches can actually work at and influence. And I think sometimes it depends on that specific passion. And so as to, you know, where they want to go through next. So I'll stop there just because I know I said a lot. Yeah,
you said, but it was great. It's actually inspiring, and I forgot to mention at the beginning that you're the founder of Agilist for Planet, the We Hope magazine, and Wicked Agility. So we're going to put links for everything in the description of the video. It is inspiring because and this is the purpose of the talk. Actually, maybe some people are really interested, but they don't know what to do. They don't know how to make an impact, or it's just something that haven't occurred to them so far. So that's our mission to even in Businessmap as a software company, to make the world a better place, to establish a better ways of working, to cut waste. So everything, I think, falls under the sustainability hat, if I could say so. So I think it is inspiring. And you gave some examples of what Scrum Master can do, what the CEO can do, what, for example, a developer can do. You said you have an IT background. So how do you think teams, what would be the best way for teams, or let's be more specific, maybe technical teams, reduce their environmental impact, and better improve their social impact today? Is there like a formula or a few actions that you can mention?
Is there a formula for human beings?
Right.
Yeah, there is. So the very first thing I would start off with is always a conversation. So because here's the really interesting thing, and I think we like inherently we do this all the time when we're working with teams, and if you're from, and your business map, so you're based on Kanban, but there's this aspect of we start where they're at, right? And so I think it's always a really important thing to realize. And so we always start with the conversation. Like we start with, well, what does sustainability mean to us as a team, as a group, right? And we start having that so we can have that conversation to understand, what is our group about? What does our group want to be able to do? Is there enough in this group that wants to try out or make a change or do something from a sustainability perspective? So me as a Scrum Master could be really excited to reduce carbon footprint, or I really want to make sure that this particular application makes a bigger social impact, or includes DEI, or includes something that helps from a social impact perspective. So So to me, it starts with a conversation. It starts with someone who's passionate about it. You bring in the passion with the team. Now, Lisa and I actually created a Miro template, which Joanne Mastraff were reminding me of the other day. Oh yeah, we did that thing. But it's for a planetary conversation. So how can we have a planetary conversation? So it's actually kind of cool because it kind of like goes through a setup, and there's a bit of safety that we want to be able to do, because this can be a somewhat triggering kind of conversation for some people, right? So and because of course there's people who just don't believe in it, and like it's from a climate perspective, and that's okay, right? Like it's okay, right? So we're not going to force people to kind of like jump onto something if they don't. But as a team, like what is the most important thing? So when we talk about sustainability, what is that thing? So having that conversation is really important. So there is a planetary conversations template in Miro that people can use if they wanted to kind of like download it as a way to start having those conversations. So start with the conversations. I think conversations are really, really important. One of the things that was really struck me is I was in a conference in Seattle last fall, and we had oh gosh, now his name is escaping me, and so is the book. Project Drawdown is the book, and I can't remember the author's name, but basically he was actually speaking at this particular event. And the one thing that he said is like, 70%, 80% of the people already know that there is something that's happening, right? Like with climate, there's an impact and a challenge that's happening. But the biggest challenge and the biggest problem that most people have is that may not be what their challenge is, or may not be that at what their problem is. So he's saying what we really need to do is we really need to meet them at their kitchen table. Like just let's talk to them at the kitchen table. So again, when he started to say that to me, I'm going like, yeah, we have to meet them where they're at. Right. So let's just not make any assumptions that everybody wants to be able to do sustainability or improvements. Right. Let's not just, make these assumptions that the first thing is around reducing carbon. It could be, as a team, how do we want to take care of sustainability? Right. I don't know what that means. Right. It could mean that we are a great team making, for example, making a huge impact, right, on the work that we do, a social impact, but we're not actually executing at a sustainable pace, and we're getting close to burnout, right? So it could be the people related aspects. So how can we continue to be in a sustainable pace? Because we're talking to some organizations that are like that in Montreal, right? So it's like, this is a true problem, right? So if we want to be able to do good with the product that we want to do, let's talk about what that is, so that we can, so that we can be resilient and thrive and able to make the impact that we want to make, right? So to me, talking with the team, meeting with Rad, having that particular conversation is a very good first start. right? But there's so much more that can be done, right? And so, and I'm going like, where can I take this to? There is aspects of, I'll pop in a couple of words because these are also stories that I collect from people, right?
Yes, that's great.
Marshall and Pylon, beautiful. Oh my gosh, beautiful person from the Netherlands, Amsterdam, and she's absolutely amazing. And she's developed something that's called Planet as a Stakeholder, and it's a retrospective that she holds. And she's actually written in the We Hope magazine. So that would be another place where I would point for people to go see what other people have done so they can get the different ideas. But she also starts at the team level, right? So what can we potentially do in terms of bringing the planet and doing a retrospective of how much work we're doing or what we need to do? And so it's another type of structure that people could actually use to kind of like get more data and information so that they can support the planet. So, but she has developed techniques around that. And so you could always talk to her, and there's other people around the world that are actually doing these techniques as well. So Erica Bajoun in the US is actually able to do these things. So there's a group of people but she would kind of like be the point person to kind of do that. There's also stuff where it's just like, as part of the product that we're delivering, right? Like you can put planet as a stakeholder in the product. So when you're doing product mapping, right? When you're figuring out the vision of the product, you can, and the stakeholders that are part of that product, the impact that it's going to make, you can put a column in there for like planet, right? Or people and planet, like what is it that we're doing around that specific area? So as we're building the product, that's the case, right? Value stream mapping. A lot of us know what value stream mapping is, right? So what if we included in the value stream mapping waste, like waste the product is producing, right? And so if you did a value stream mapping of the product itself and what you're actually producing and, from beginning to end, it's not just waste of time or waste of cost, right? But is there waste that product is actually producing at the variety of different steps, right? That it's creating. Because one of the things that we want to do is eliminate waste, right? And so if you want to bring in concepts like circular economy, right? Circular economy or regeneration or biomimicry, right? Which are all different, beautiful techniques. And by the way, in my head, I knew from an agile perspective that we knew all these different things, but I didn't know how to include the planet into it, right? Yeah. So it's like, how could I do that? Well, biomimicry, regeneration, circular economy, they all have an amazing set of concepts, which are great. And so Ines Garcia, bless her soul, amazing. She's got a huge amount of experience in this particular space. And she's holding a cohort actually, which starts today, unfortunately, but really? They'll probably be another one. But, she's an agile practitioner, but then she brings in all these different concepts to kind of go, how can we bring in these concepts so that, we reduce waste, right? And we're not causing more impact to the earth and leaving it better than it was before, for example, right? So again, that's one of the, in the manifestos and the principles, that's one of the things that we strive to do, right? How can we leave what we do better than we left it before? Yes. Yeah. So to me, it's like, it's interesting. There's some similarities that are in these particular methodologies that are out there, and some that we can learn tons from, right? And so some of us have, and like I said, beautiful people that already have some of that stuff. So great. So there's processes, there's practices. Joanna Masrath calls it, I think it's like these are twisted. She's twisted the processes up. So she's like added a little bit of people and more people and planet to the practices and processes that we know. And it can't, like, you could think of emptying million ways to kind of bring the planet or people into any of the processes that we do, right? even putting a green chair in your office or whatever the case may be in the team room, right? And it's basically Earth that comes to the meeting every single stand up, for example. You can do things like this, right? But it and make it fun. We don't have to make it all. By the way, let's not make it all dreary and upsetting and whatever. It's just like, this is a good thing. This is a very good thing that we're doing, and the people who are actually doing this from like a profit that gets, if we can make products which are more what IDEO calls radically desirable, and in it has sustainability in it. Oh my gosh, it's we can reduce costs in so many different ways, and it's better for everyone. So then I'll talk about the developer on the team, like what can they do, right? So just let you know. Yeah. So from a developer's perspective, there's some cool technology which is out there. So green software development, I think it's green. So we'll have to kind of like bring some of the links, but they have like free online courses which allows you to kind of like figure out how to reduce the carbon footprint of the application, to measure the carbon footprint and so forth. Actually, I was just talking just before this call, and there's an organization which is called Oxygen IT or IT Oxygen. It was like I just and it's so cool because what they're doing is they're measuring from a cloud perspective the carbon footprint of the cloud applications that are being used in the different servers, right? And so it's frigging amazing that there's all these great tools which are out there that the software developers could just try out for free, and then see how much their applications are actually using energy, right? And the carbon footprint that they produce. And here's some other practices that you can actually use to actually reduce your carbon footprint. And then also, put as part of your technical debt. These are the things that, we want to be able to do. So yeah, so there's lots of great, the Green Software Foundation, like I said, has some ideas of how to do this, but there's really great movements which are happening. So Gail, I can't pronounce Gail's last name, but he has this initiative called Green IO. Oh my gosh, he's so cool. We were on their podcast not too long ago. So he's got a great podcast, which is mainly a bunch of techies, and I get geeked out from techies. And so I'm listening to them going, you did what? Oh yeah, we searched the grid, and it was like, and we figured out the cheaper places to run our jobs over here, when the lights are down, right? So they do optimizations of grids. And so it reduces costs, it reduces greenhouse gases. Like there's all these things that they're doing. So amazing community of people. And he also has a conference which is happening in Europe and in the US and stuff like that. So it's so cool. Like it's just amazing. And then there's some other tech people which are out there. He's going to kill me because I've just forgotten his name, but it'll come to me later. But so for me, it's about following some of those people, and I can give you the link to some of these great people who are just trying to make a difference. So it's just like, yeah, I like to go, oh, I like you. Oh, you're awesome. So yeah, so basically there is a lot we can do from a tech perspective. It may be, somewhat challenging in terms of what your role is. And then it comes down to, how much you can actually influence the organization to use some of those ideas and stuff like that. And I think this is where, a lot of what we do as Agilists, we've done a lot of transformations in organizations before. Of course, because that's what we do. So influencing others is probably one of our sweet spots. Yeah, and what's happening for me, I'm like going, we're not hypnotizing people to change, but we do have different methods that we've kind of like used over the past, which is, I mean, what we with transparency, like we have a variety of different things that we actually use, experimentation, like understanding what the client wants, like not implementing agile just because for the sake of agile, but combining it with what their needs are. So I mean, I think us as Agilists can help with that kind of influence with the leaders and to help with the adoption of these things as well. Because basically, hell, we've been doing this since 2012, trying to help organizations adopt a new way of working. Why not adopt sustainability? Just add it on to the list of things that we can do because we care about people and planet. We really do. So, yeah, I'll stop there.
That was all great information, really helpful, and all the resources that you shared, I believe are so useful. So thank you very much for that. And when it comes to influencing the entire organization, I guess a few people have the final word on what will happen. So when you are working with organizations, have you encountered like a pushback from C-level directors, managers, and what is your approach? What is the message that clicks for them? What do you think?
Yeah. So I really think that what we need to do is we need to understand what the leaders are trying to do. Right. So,
Yes.
and empathize with them. Right. So, some, I think we as, Agilists, we've called the middle layer, the frozen layer, and, we've given names, and that's not really, when I stand back, I'm going like, oh my gosh, I was part of that. I think the whole thing is we need to be able to empathize and understand them a little bit better. So here's some stuff. I think with executives and leaders, understanding the CSR, the corporate sustainability, or corporate social responsibility, I think it is. There's a report that they actually, most organizations have to report. I can't, the acronym is CSR. I don't know if I'm getting the correct words. So many acronyms that are in my head right now. But it's a corporate social responsibility. That's what it is. So basically, you can kind of look at that and then go, what is our corporate social responsibility report? What is it there? What's in it that we as a corporation have promised to do? What can I do that will support that leader and that corporate, that responsibility? The other aspect is ESG is another big reporting thing that's happening. And so if we're able to, help with the reporting to reduce carbon footprint of these applications and the cost, right? Does that help with the overall ESG and everything like that? So you have to do digging to kind of understand, what is it that these particular corporations, what are they driven by? So a lot of times, when I look at some of these corporations and their causes, right? Like, so
Yes.
what is it that, what is your biggest cause? Like, how do you want to, tell us, for example, they have a day of giving, right? And so they want to be able to, and they promote this, like, and by the way, if they get so many hours of volunteer work, guess what? They get credit from the Canadian government. Right.
Oh,
so,
okay.
so there's this aspect of they truly want to give, and it's not all about money, but if it allows them to get credits, right, in their bottom line, it works really well. But the TELUS Day of Giving, for example, it's a one-day event, and it's a beautiful thing to do. But, for some of the stuff that we want to be able to do, we want to be able to have like more of a, maybe, just planting trees may not be the only thing you do on that one day. What if, we brought a group of people together to work on a strategy for a specific community to work on, right? So the farmers, if we're working with the community garden, or we're working with the the Latin American group, right? Like, what can we do as a group to strategize and bring some of the other employees within your corporation to be able to kind of do that, right? So in order to do things like that, we need to understand the organization. Are they up for wanting to why would they want to do that, for example? Well, they would want to do it because, it increases engagement of their employees. The employees are feeling like they're doing something more that matters than just planting trees, right? It can also increase the amount of volunteer time, right? Because this can happen all year long, and it doesn't have to happen during the day, right? It can happen at night, right? So, because people really feel like they want to do something that matters, and that's super, super important. So, it's basically tying together like what you're trying to do. And for us, we do what's called a sipathon, or sipathon. It's funny. That's what we're doing this weekend. That's what's on my head right now. For us, we do SIPs, which are sustainability incubated projects. And that's part of our 10,000 fresh starts. And so we're trying to get this across all around the world. And so for us, we know what it is required to actually do this thing, but it has so many benefits that can be done for the employee, for the organization, for this. So you need to kind of understand, what drives that particular organization, or drives those leaders, and start with them. And for me, like, all else fails, if you don't really know, then just have a conversation. Right. So just like, I have an idea, I don't know if it's going to work or not, can I just have a few minutes of your time to kind of like brainstorm some ideas with you to kind of figure out how, I really appreciate what we're doing as a company. I think this is really great. And I want to help the company thrive, and I want to help the people thrive. And I also want to help the planet thrive. And so how can we, what can we do in this specific area that's going to help us? Right. So that's what, and I think I feel that the more that our teams and more people are talking about this, right? This is where I would talk about in the conversation. The more people that are actually doing this, the more the more visibility and transparency that it comes inside a company, the more that the company starts realizing this is happening, and they start going, ooh, nice. Like Marshalyn, I'll tell you, she actually started within a bank. I can't remember which bank it is, so I don't think I can name it either, but she started with the plan as a stakeholder with a couple of teams. And then basically she brought in, and she goes, look, I didn't know. She goes, I just asked. And then they, and she goes, and then she held an event for the organization, right? And then there was 100 people that were there. And then it's just like, oh my gosh, now she's got all this data, right? That the organization wants to do, and that the leaders now can go, and here you go, leaders, like, for you, free, see you later.
Yes.
So, and my gosh, you just like, if we can bring back that life, that engagement, that, people care, they want to do something that matters. So can we bring that back into our companies so that we're not like mechanical, like I just got to do this thing, but, so that we can improve people and planet. We'll improve the company for sure. We can improve our communities for sure. We can do so much more. We got to bring that in. And sometimes we have to start bottom up versus top down, right?
Right.
And again, this is what we know. So yeah. So anyways, that's that. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, and so this is an interesting question. Is there, if you could remove just one habit from organizations, software organizations, or just big companies, what would it be, so they could make the first steps without this bad habit of working, if I could say so?
Oh, bad habit of working. Oh my gosh, no one would say they have a bad habit. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's so many things which are going through my head right now, because I just had this amazing conversation with this IT organization. What is a bad habit that I'd want to change? And there's so many things. So I'm gonna, because I'm gonna focus on sustainability more than anything. So if I was staying in the sustainability side, versus just like, we need to be able to talk to our people a little bit more and understand. Ooh, that's a good one too. Okay. Sorry. So here's some stuff. So some practical stuff, and then so there's this doing aspect and this being aspect, right? Like again, we talk about doing and being. I feel like if I could sit there and say there's not something that I would stop, what I would start doing, would be, from a techie perspective, is looking at all our applications that are sitting around that we've created over the last so many years in some of these organizations that we've had, and bringing into it like all the waste that it, like there's the 80-20 rule, like 20% of the 20% of what we've actually created does 80% of the functionality, right? But so 80% of the functionality that we've created in these applications are not really required, right? We don't have these practices in place, enough practices in place, I find, to kind of go back and like, this is like technical debt and all that kind of stuff. But here's something radical. What if we just, figured out that just let products die? Why can't we go back? Like we don't necessarily go back and look at some of the footprints of our products and find out that, these products are no longer used. Let's just kill this, or let's remove all this data. Let's remove, like, it's just like this, there's a cleanup, a tech cleanup that we could potentially do, right? And we're great at innovating ideas and creating and building more stuff. But how about if we took that innovation energy to look at how can we now start removing? So instead of creating more, like being in that story of more, right? Let's be in the story of this is enough, or story of less. I don't need more, right? But let's just kind of like, let's remove all those things and have that as part of our DNA to kind of like look at. And it's just like, if you could, because we can't visualize it and we can't see it, it's really hard. But if we had a forest, right, of all these things, and we kept on planting more and more trees in the forest, right, and they're all starving for the oxygen and a place to grow, eventually things will just die, right?
Yes.
It happens quite naturally. You can kind of like see things, people will, the things will compete with each other, they'll die, whatever the case may be. But but we can't see this forest, we can't see any of it, right? And we're not realizing that we're creating this thing, but the forest has no natural things, right? To actually, the tree is decaying, right? Okay, great. The insects are coming. The woodpecker goes in there, and then it drills holes in it, which then attracts the next group of insects, which then attracts the groups of that are going to kill the whole tree. And someone from biomimicry is going to kill me right now because I don't know all the different steps. But eventually, that tree dies, and then it nourishes the forest, and everything else kind of grows from it, right? We don't have any of those types of tools or practices or in any of the software that we create, but we don't have anything that kind of like removes that. And this is what's causing a lot of the issues that we have, and a lot of costs. And so if we were able to kind of like change that, then I think that would be really helpful. And so change the way our thinking, so we can kind of like look at what we've created and look at it like it's a forest or whatever the case may be, and allow for things to die and remove them, right? And so that more things can grow, right? So that we can create innovating. I'm not saying stop innovating, but we need to kind of like do this. So like there's this aspect of like being aware that we're just not always in this growth. And so Maurice would love me right now, because Maurice Mayan talks a lot about this as well. But so it's basically degrowth, right? Like, so we have to kind of like get into that. Yeah. And then from a people aspect, like I just feel that the one thing that we don't do and we need to do is hold conversations where we have different perspectives, right? So remember I was talking earlier, like there's this aspect, there can be climate deny, like there's people who, I hate to say that climate deniers, but that's it's just people who just don't believe in it. That's right. Okay.
Yes, there are such people, yes.
Yeah. And there's people that are very, 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 this is what we got to do. We have to do this thing or whatever, And it's just like, there's an impact and there's a reason why each side is like that, right? And so we need to hold these views of these different people in the groups, right? And have these conversations so that we can see, like I call them heart-to-heart conversations. And so I do this with Vesta. And Vesta and I, we do these things every once in a while, and we love them. But integral facilitation does a lot of this stuff too, which is absolutely beautiful. Like, how can we get a group of people together to talk about the shit that's happening? Right? Like, if it's in our organization, if it has to do with the president of the United States and the vice president and what Dodge is doing, like if that's the insanely upsetting issue that we have, then let's have a conversation about it, right? And let's hold the space for both the red and the blue, right? Like let's hold the space for that conversation to happen. Because, and if we can do it in a compassionate way, because that's where the juicy stuff comes from. That's where the stuff like comes from, which, you know, I was part of a climate conversation, a climate circle in Durham region. And one of the things that popped up was climate anxiety, because there's so many things that are, we got to do something. And that's creating such a depressive states in our teenagers and some of the younger generations than I. And it's horrific. Right? These people think they feel that there's going to be no world, right? They feel that, you know, so we're not giving any hope. We're what are we doing? Like, it's just like, so people are becoming suicidal. And so like the impact that you have activists, right, is causing this issue, right? This is why I don't want to hear about it anymore, right? Like that could be the perspective of someone else on the other side. But how would you know that without having the conversation, right? This is held in communities. It should be held in communities worldwide. And I'm sure there are people that are holding these conversations, and I know they are because there's braver angels in the US. They hold these conversations with red and blue, and they do some other things, which with Black Lives Matters, like they've done some beautiful things. But we need more of that. We need to be in our corporations and organizations holding beautiful conversations so that so that we can all share what's going on, so that we can kind of work with each other and figure out what we need to do next. I'm not saying we need to get aligned. I'm not saying we all have to be all of a sudden go to one side or another. No. Hold your sides, because that's what makes us beautiful, people. Right? But yes. There is an aspect of we need to kind of like figure out what's here so that we can figure out what we need to do next, even though that these two sides are there, right? So I think that's one of the things that we need to do more of, for sure. Yeah. Anyways.
That's great. Okay, so to summarize, that's degrowth and then having the right conversations, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And just to close up this amazing talk that we had, where would you direct people to get more involved? What would be the first step where they can read some inspirational stories of transformations? What would you recommend?
So I would definitely so if you're an agilist or if you're not an agilist and you're a sustainability person, that's okay too, because we have sustainability people in the magazine. So I would go to We Hope magazine. I think it's a really great place where people can start. I don't know if Inez does this, but Inez, I don't know if she's recorded all the other talks that she's had in the past, but what she's done as part of Agile Alliance, there's an sustainability manifesto that Yuda and was very much involved, and thank you, Yuda, for doing a bunch of that. Basically, there is this manifesto that people can sign, and she has signatory interviews, and so you hear people talk about what they did and why they did it and stuff like that. So it's always interesting to follow up with them. There is also Agilist. So Agilist for Planet, we have our conference that's going on. It isn't planned out yet, but it'll be in the June timeframe, so watch out for that.
Okay.
There's also Agilist for Sustainability, so that we do weekly meetups. Another one is called Agile for Good, which is done by Pia and I can't pronounce their last name, she's gonna kill me, and Daniel, and they're in Sweden, and they're just two beautiful people as well. So there's a lot of really great ways that people can just go to a meetup right? Just go to one of these meetups. Go to if you're able to go to Agilist for Planet, the website, you can actually see some of the recordings of previous speakers. So you can look at that, right? Go to We Hope magazine on the same site, see the stories that are there. Reach out to me, so like, and I can share tons of different stories, and I can point people into different directions. And I guess that the last thing I would sit there and say is start where you're at. So, and like, to me, it's, I feel that we're at this particular tipping point, where, and I'm not really quite sure where it's kind of going towards, but the more people that we have talking about this, the more people that we have going in towards action towards this, the more that this is going to happen, right? And I think that's what we're feeling, and more people are actually moving into this particular space. So, start with take small little steps, apply Agile to everything that you do. So yeah, and the other thing that, by the way, so the Sustainability Incubator Projects is another place where we actually apply our knowledge to people who are passionate about a cause. And so, like I said, like I've been talking about as we go through this, that's one of my passion projects. I need to get into action. Like, for me, I can't sit in this place of despair. And so in order for me to go into hope and create hope has action in it. And so I need to get into that action. And so I'm doing it, right? So I'm trying my best anyways. I don't know what it's going to end up in the end, but
you are doing
it got me here, apparently. But there's some beautiful people that are out there, and there's a lot of great people that you can connect with. So yeah. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Well, Joanne, thank you so much for this talk, for being a great person. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today for our conversation. Hope you have an amazing week.